at that point of the day where everyone's just really enjoying talking to each other, to the point where you almost would rather do that than sit and talk, listen to us anymore. And we're the same, we're as bad, we're just talking to everybody. And that's really why we brought you all here, actually, to do exactly that. But we are going to pull it back to one of our planned events, which is our Global Voices event. I think we were hoping to have some global voices on screen as of now. I don't know that we do, but that's okay because we have a global voice right here in person. Anyway, so I'm going to hop over there and we'll head on, we'll get going with our next session. Yeah? Good. So, hello again. Am I on mic? I am on mic. That's great. Oh, fantastic. Well, this is very hot. Right off the presses. Some new materials back there. So you've seen this wonderful little, very handy little wallet-sized booklet. What is a Climate Café? How to get one started? What does it all mean? Easy to put in your pocket and whip out and chat to someone about. But there's a bit more of a complete startup guide here, which gives you everything you need to know about why to do it, how to do it, what's it like when you do start a Climate Café. And another very handy new booklet up there. Oh, it's still hot as well. Whew. Climate Café in the Workplace, all brand new off the presses, and that's very handy. And some of that is what's come up today about starting climate cafes in the workplace you spoke to. And all the other leaflets and everything are up there too about the impact statements from the various climate cafes that we've enjoyed meeting the coordinators from today. So do help yourself to these flyers and leaflets and booklets because we know that you'll make good use of them and take them to your workplaces and to your own climate cafes and wherever you go to spread the word and see if we can keep the groundswell of momentum going on in our communities. Gosh, I'm just full of thoughts and ideas, and I must say that the last session there with Rosie was very therapeutic, and I want to thank her for that. I heard everybody saying, that was so therapeutic. And it is, it's lovely, and it's really nice to be given license just to draw and doodle without any great judgment about the quality of your drawings and doodles, and to be told that they're all fantastic and they all express something unique to you. So that was actually really nice, Jess, and we were shown how we could draw like a doodle of the Climate Café logo and what we could do with that and stuff. So that was brilliant. I really loved that, and I'm glad I had a chance to join in. So there's been so much going on, so many talks about collaborations. It was really nice to hear the local authority perspective from Grant, Richard and Susie, and they touched on, Climate Café in the workplace, and we've talked a little bit now about business and workplace perspective. So now we're going to probably talk a little bit about that, but also we're straddling a couple of worlds here because we're going into our global space for climate cafes, but it's also a very personal connection for this community. So in 2017, after what I call a sort of a 5-year courtship, Asheville, North Carolina, which is a city of almost 100,000 people, I guess, and Dunkeld and Birnam, which is a village of 1,350, became officially twinned, as we talk in our parlance, in their parlance, sister cities. And Asheville Sister Cities is a very well-established organization. They have sister cities in France, in Mexico. I think there are actually 2 in Mexico, in Greece, Nigeria, Russia, and which underscores the importance of these trying to establish connections. And they thought they would try and have one in Scotland, which they achieved. And it took a while to do because we are such a small community. How does a community like this uphold that sort of relationship with a much bigger community? And we pretty soon found out that with shared viewpoints, shared goals of what we could get out of it, the relative sizes didn't really make any difference. So we were focusing on such obvious connections between our communities here and there as music, because our traditional music here is very much embedded in the southern Appalachian Mountains where Asheville is. Generally in heritage, in outdoor sports. I think mountain biking was basically invented in Asheville area and around the Blue Ridge Mountains, and outdoor sports are a huge thing as they are here. education, churches, tourism. Asheville area, very much like our own, is a tourist destination and probably suffers from the same stresses as we do about that. Food sustainability and food culture was one, gardens and horticulture, and environmental stewardship came up very early on as an important strand of our connection. And that naturally has grown into wanting to encourage Asheville to establish a climate cafe. So the Asheville Climate Café is actually one of our most recently established climate cafes, already very busy, largely established at AB Tech, which is a technical college, although I think they've also reached out to UNCA, the University of North Carolina, Asheville, and Warren Wilson College, so they've got some really nice campus activity there. And it just so happens that Ken Nelson is the president currently of Asheville Sister Cities as an organisation. Now, Ken has just been in his professional capacity to a conference in Amsterdam, and he was coming to visit us anyway, and sort of first visit to one of the sister cities as president. He came a wee bit early so he could be part of today. So Ken's professional background is in clean energy, sustainability marketplace, and he's president and co-founder of Blue Delta Energy in Asheville, North Carolina. So please welcome him onto the stage, Ken Nelson, and thank you for joining us. Can you hurdle all these? Come around if you want to sit here. If we do get someone on screen, we will converse with them too, and if not, perhaps Jess, you'll end up joining us here. Welcome.
So great to be here. I'm glad it worked out.
Oh, we're really glad it worked out, and it's great to get a global perspective. We have this connection between Dunkeld and Birnam and Asheville, which is the special twinning connection, but also now in your capacity, you're able to make comments also about our, lively connection with climate cafes. The thing is with a twinning and with a sister cities, and can I just point out Alistair Wiley, who, like me, straddles both organisations of our twinning as well as our climate cafe. So Alistair and I serve on both boards and committees. The thing about a twinning situation or sister cities is you don't want something like that to be dependent on a committee of dedicated people who over time burn out or grow out of it, and then the whole thing sort of evaporates on that basis. You want it to become sustainable into the future because it makes sense, and there are lots of connections that are forged between the communities that then become independent of the actual committee. And that already has happened with Dunkeld Cathedral and a church in near Asheville, because they swapped ministers. We've got something starting with the school, and there are other connections that are beginning to take on a life of their own, which is great. And the one that I see a great future in just managing, and they already are, without having to connect with the twinning group, is Climate Café. And that's because it makes so much sense in both communities. So we're thrilled about that. Can you just give people here a wee sense of Asheville as a community, and the fact that Asheville, like us, is in a sort of mountain environment with beautiful sort of scenery around, but it's also a centre for climate data and research and scientific expertise. It's Climate City, I think, has been nicknamed at times. Why is that?
Actually, all of the climate data for the U.S. is headquartered in Asheville. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's data repository for climate data is in Asheville. So we have a number of government scientists that are in Asheville, and that's part of the reason why we consider ourselves Climate City, is because we have so much expertise that's local. And that those locals, of course, are also members of other organizations, and they get out and they spread the word. I'm actually a member of the Rotary, and we have the former head of the NOAA office in Asheville is our head of our environmental committee. So we're doing environmental projects of all types. I mean, it's that cross-pollination, if you will.
And also there's the North Carolina Institute for Climate Studies. Is that an academic department or?
And we even have the Arboretum there. We have, interestingly, I know I've been having some conversations with folks about forestry. We are considered the birthplace of the American forestry as a study is in Asheville as a part of the Biltmore estate. When the Vanderbilts built their huge mountain house, which is still to this day the largest single-family dwelling in the United States, they also hired the landscape architects that had done Central Park and a number of the famous parks. Well, out of that emerged the study of forestry that then became the Yale School of Forestry, which is our oldest school in the U.S. To study forestry. So we have all these different connections in terms of the environment. That's why I think the Climate Café makes so much sense.
Interesting you should mention the Biltmore House and Estate, because Asheville is one of the rare communities in the US, as in there are really none. I think there's the William Randolph Hearst Castle out in California, but it's the only place where we can say that has a sort of a castle, a stately home, and it's a wonderful kind of French-style, chateau-style. Look up pictures of the Biltmore House. So when we established the twinning, Thomas Stewart Fotheringham of Merthyr Castle said he would like Merthyr Castle and Estate to be considered part of the assets of the twinning, and he's been very generous in inviting people who've come over to Merthyr. So we actually both have a big sort of castle and estate that goes with our twinned communities, which is just an unusual thing to be able to connect with in an American community. I should say to you, and this is quite unfair really, because you've not been here before, I don't think, and now you've just arrived and you were delayed by an accident, I think, or incident on the A9. What are your first impressions?
Having been parked on the A9 for 45 minutes.
Yeah, great emergency services.
No, it's. I mean, obviously, I couldn't have picked a better day to come. I mean, the weather looks beautiful. So, is this a normal day?
Well, actually, it's usually much hotter than this.
No, it's. I'm looking forward to spending some time here. I'm going to be here till Tuesday, so we have some things planned, and I'm going to hopefully get up and do a little hiking this weekend and just enjoy my time here.
And then, more specifically, since you've been here for most of the day, what are your impressions of this gathering and this movement, which started in such a small community and is now sort of spreading globally?
No, I am excited to see how we can utilize what, all the materials and all the work that has been put into this effort. I served for a term on what we called the Blue Horizons Project Community Council in Asheville, which was a citizen-led, but also we had the local town city council as well as the county board had delegates, and we were trying to put together a climate plan for Asheville and the county. And I'll be honest, it was a very frustrating process to see how the political will wasn't really, there was, I don't want to call it just lip service, but it was, I got the general sense that the politicians that were in our committee were more interested in just getting the box checked than they were in really making true change. And I think really for us to achieve the true change that we're seeking, we need to educate the local population so that people understand and are not just naively thinking, oh, well, Asheville, we're a green city. So we check a few boxes, we do a few projects, we take a few pictures, but no, we need to have a much more thorough understanding of what this really means with the climate movement, and that's why I'm excited to really be a big supporter.
More broadly in the US, we know Asheville is a very kind of politically liberal city, etc., but more broadly in the US, climate change and environmentalism seems to be so highly politicized and, dare I say, part of the culture wars. That must be incredibly frustrating with regards to accurate information being disseminated. How do you kind of stay above that fray and get the work done?
No, that's where I think the Climate Café really is important, to get that information, get that education, so that the people aren't so easily manipulated by false information. There is a lot of unfortunately, we have a lot of people putting out misinformation. I won't name names or parties, but we do have a lot of climate, still to this day, we have climate deniers, and it's sad but true. And I think the only way we overcome that is to have the local, the local voters really understand that they're, what is true, what isn't true, what is the importance of this, why are we so committed to climate? I was having a discussion at lunch today. One of the things that's happening in the United States is that insurance rates for homes are going up dramatically, and people are starting to notice and starting to complain. And the insurance companies aren't, they're just cold calculating, looking at risk and what it really means. They're not taking a position on climate change other than it's real and it's costing and somebody's going to have to pay for it. And I think, ironically, I think that's opening as many eyes as anything at this point, in that, the Floridas and the Texases and the Californias with the wildfires, the flash flooding, the hurricanes.
Dangerous levels of heat in the cities.
Yes.
Places like Atlanta are incredibly hot.
Or even in Texas when they had a cold snap, and it was, believe it or not, there are more people, I think, die of cold than heat, I think. But it's amazing that people are starting to pay attention that our systems are not designed to handle these climate challenges. And it's not, you can no longer just say it's a one-off, once in a 100-year event. I think, people, when they keep hearing everything is a 100-year rain or a 100-year heat wave, and then it happens every other year, they realize that they can't pretend that this is not where things are heading because of climate change.
Cheers.
Yeah, we're not at this moment joined online by any of our coordinators, so this is all new learning. But just to share some of the international voices that we hear across the Climate Café network. We hear from Climate Café Multi-Faith, which is run from Oregon. The fires, close by to the doors of the community and how it was affecting and impacting on the families who are part of the conversation. And Rashenda, who has coordinated so beautifully that Climate Café for years now, brings together people across all different faiths. As you can hear, she had Bill McKibben join her on her Climate Café, which I felt really privileged to join the other day with 110 other people from around the world. But they're leading a real movement to move the money, and that's one of the biggest impacts that we can make, is to get that money out of fossil fuels and the subsidies out of fossil fuels and into the just transition, truly just transition, which has obviously got a lot of leadership, or has had leadership here in Scotland as well. But yeah, just hearing the impacts, I think that's one of during COP26, when we did the global climate cafes, it was so striking to hear from so many voices around the world and, across continents, across Africa, Asia, and to hear the climate justice stories, which, the people being impacted the most when they've done the least, but also to hear what we had in common. What was most striking was what we had in common about talking and acting and, shouting from our communities and, to enable systems change as well for those voices to be heard.
Asheville has, in my mind, had a long-standing commitment to implementing and adapting ways of tackling climate-related challenges, but also facing up to the need to build resilience into the city. So it's not just about let's see what we can do to reduce our carbon footprint, it's also about looking at things that are happening and will happen and how can we be resilient as a community. Can you speak to any of these initiatives in Asheville?
Well, but I will say we had an event 2 years ago over the winter when we actually lost the water system for the southern half of our city for a week. So I think even in our area, we're realizing our infrastructure isn't up to speed we need to really be thinking about, and it's driving a lot of hard questions. I mean, it's real money, and it's, when you're talking about redoing pumping stations and sewer lines and water lines, it's not sexy. But I mean, I think that's what we're up against. We're facing, because we actually set some, once again, climate change, right? We're seeing all these changes in the jet stream, weather patterns, things that are happening. It's not, we used to say global warming. Now it's more the full implications of what it is that's going on. And so this event that happened, we actually, for us, I know I speak in Fahrenheit, which is probably not going to work here, but we were at minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which for us is very, very cold, and our infrastructure failed, and it failed spectacularly to the point where it took a whole week to bring the water system back.
And that's in a wealthy country,
Yeah.
with assets and access to all kinds of emergency services. We can only imagine what that's like in more impoverished nations at the sort of sharp end of the impact of climate change.
I wondered if I could ask a question, if that's all right, Fiona, as well. Just a nice story to share with Ken. First of all, yesterday I was doing a broadcast in Atlanta for with across Georgia with Rose Scott, who Ken knows. And we were hearing about the inspiration that the Climate Café in Asheville, as we were talking about clusters of climate cafes, has inspired Climate Café to get going in Georgia as well. So we're looking forward to supporting those climate cafes. I was going to ask, so we were recently in Paris at a summit of 1,000 solutions, and Climate Café was selected as one of the seeds of change, which was really exciting. And I was lucky enough to be on a panel alongside 10-year-old Ali, who's representing Kids Against Plastic and has taken on a massive trade body and has really given Primark some tough times on the way. I was just wondering on your reflections from Amsterdam and, just thoughts from here today. If you've got any thoughts for us as we finish up our day here.
So I was in Amsterdam. The one thing I think that we're seeing, which is, to me, and I'm an optimist, I will say I've had the opportunity to talk with a number of folks in different technologies, different industries, and to see, what the creative solutions that could be unleashed if we are willing to commit to them. But we're also seeing now dialogues taking place amongst all these different segments and sectors and technologies that we in the past might have seen a very siloed approach to everything. Now we're having these discussions and sharing ideas and sharing and actually trying to drive towards common standards. The reason I was in Amsterdam, we had a panel discussion on implementing, the U.S. passed some climate reporting legislation just recently with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and California passed its own set of reporting regulations. And EU, of course, has their CSRD, Climate Sustainable Reporting Directive. So we're all struggling with how do we actually convince people of what they're, what are the corporations really doing? We hear the term greenwashing, we hear all this activity and what companies are doing, but how is someone like, supposed to objectively measure or commit or understand how green really these programs are? So we're developing common standards now where we can all kind of compare across the world. It's a global effort. We even had folks from China here in Amsterdam. We're all trying to get to that so that we can share that knowledge of what is true green investment and what is, unfortunately, greenwashing.
That's really good to hear, and it is nice to bring us towards some optimism, hopeful thoughts. Although I think actually all of today has felt very optimistic and full of hope, because we're talking about what we do on the ground. We're not really going to be beaten down by stuff coming from above. We know what we're doing, and we know what we can do and what we must and will do. So great to hear about that. And also the other thing that comes out of that is the sense of collaboration, sharing information. I think the more that we can do that, and that happens on an organic level amongst our climate cafes with ideas and initiatives, the more we can share, collaborate, build these alliances, the better we'll be to turn all this around. Jess, are we kind of coming close to a point to wrap up? I think you and I are quite comfy in our nice chairs here. We shouldn't bother with the podium anymore unless you've got slides to show.
Yeah, no more slides. I don't think. I'll go check. There might be another nice icon to share, but I'll leave you, Fiona, to wrap up. And thank you, Ken.
Well, Ken, I just want to thank you very much for. I know you planned to come and see us, but as soon as Ken heard what we were doing today with our network gathering, he was very keen to come and be part of it. Alistair Wiley is with us. Alistair, did you have something you wanted to ask Ken? Yes, please do.
Ken, as far as we know, Asheville Sister Cities has got, in addition to its link here with Kelvin Birnam, links with 4 or 5 other communities around the world.
7 total, but the Russian connection, as you can imagine, is a little bit fraught these days.
You also have links with the Sister Cities network around the US, I guess.
Yes.
And my guess is that some of those others in the States might well have their own links with Scotland or elsewhere in the UK. I guess my question is, what would be your take on the possibilities for getting further spread of this through those links?
Oh, a
Both
great question.
to your fellow sister cities in other countries of the world, but also elsewhere in the US, and maybe not just with this movement, but also, as we still have local authority representatives here, with local authorities in those other countries and other bits of the US, who might or might not have this on their agenda already.
What a great question,
Yeah.
actually, because that's what this is about, is building our networks.
Oh, and definitely. We are actually attending at the end of May a Summit of the Americas, where we're actually having all the sister cities and their twins, I guess, from the Central and South America into San Antonio to discuss ways that we can collaborate on different types of projects. We're doing some really interesting things. I could go on for hours about some of the projects we're doing with we have 2 Mayan cities that were actually sister cities with Valladolid and San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas, and one in the Yucatan. And the composting toilet issue. I will admit, I can also be a terrible dinner guest because I'm the guy that takes tours of wastewater treatment plants. So, but I love the technology. I love the opportunities and the collaboration. And I see exactly what you say, which is we should be looking at how to spread this Climate Café message to both our cities, our sister cities, but also our network of other U.S. cities.
That's a great something to talk about in our various shared committees in our community. And thanks for that, Alistair Wiley, who most people here know very well. So, are you energized? Are you re-energized? I hope so. I hope our coordinators that are still with us are feeling, appreciated and valued, which is one of our most desired outcomes for this gathering. And we hope you've got sort of new and strengthened connections, and that you've shared ideas and inspiration, and eventually maybe also resources. Please bear with me. I've got quite a long list of thank yous, but I really want to work through them all because it takes an awful lot to make today happen and to make everything happen that's been happening for, well, by 2025, it'll be for 10 years. So, Jess, if you'll bear with me, I'd like to really do a proper thank you list, so relax and enjoy. I do want to thank the co-founders, Climate Strikers and Change Makers, Ruby and Doogie. And Doogie's in here, and they occasionally sneak out of school to be part of all these things. I want to thank Tom for the fabulous illustrations and creatives lead. We've had a lot of praise on that front with people that look at the materials. Graham for the constant tending and developing of our web space to connect us all. Joe at GMP for delivering all these materials that you see up the back, and they've all piled through a massive amount of work in the past few months since we got funding so that we could have these materials to share with you today. Big shout out to our team. You've seen them buzzing all around. There's Lindsay up there, Elizabeth and Alistair in the sound booth, and the whole team at Birnam Arts, Todd, Kirsty, Ferg, Emma, and Lewis, and they've created and delivered this event for us all. Rosie for the wonderful illustrations and the workshop that we all enjoyed. Huge thanks to our board, Ruby for all her leadership and advice. She's studying and can't be here with us, but is in spirit. Alistair for his strong sense of governance and community. Joel, who's also working, for his passion about nature and action. And Jess for supporting all the delivery and realising the opportunity of the funding that she secured with a lot of hard work, blood, sweat and tears. So thanks to Jess for realising the opportunity of the funding to support and connect our climate cafes. And thanks to Alistair for helping to manage the joys of finance admin online. Every one of a supportive, creative, positive, patient and brilliant team, with Lindsay there every day to make sure things go to plan with care and kindness. Graham, the constant support for Jess, behind the scenes, from snacks and sustenance, from Livy's to the Paris Metro. Thanks to Alan Garrett for his professional expertise and support. Giraffe for the great food and the fantastic work that we've enjoyed today. And of course, Livy's little lunchbox for all the pastries and all the sweet treats. Maze for soup, smiles and tea. Gordon for his patience and understanding. So this is a movement shaped by communities, diversity of communities. So an enormous thank you to everyone who creates the space to drink, chat and act in their community, no matter how big or small. It is creating change for the better. I feel we all share that belief really passionately. Thank you to all of you who have come today, sharing your precious time, and we hope that you do feel inspired and connected and really supported by this community network. Thanks to our new friends and connections. I've made several today, collaborators, supporters. Thanks to our funders, Scottish Government, Cabinet Secretary, who visited us 2 days ago. She did spend quite a lot of time with us, and she understands, I think, why community leadership can and must deliver. And in the face of the statement yesterday, it's only serves to underscore how important it is that this happens from the communities up the way. Particular thanks to John Swinney, MSP. He's watched and unwaveringly supported this movement as it has grown from his constituency to worldwide, and I think he takes a lot of personal pride in that, Jess, and he made it the focus of his first members' debate in 17 years in the Scottish Parliament, and many of us here were very proud to attend that in person. Thanks to all of you who've been here since the beginning and have believed, no matter how ridiculous the idea sounded, across our community and in so many more, from Birnam to Oregon, to Nigeria and Assam and Asheville. Jan, Stuart, James, Liz, Jan, Lindsay, Jamie, Ruth, Bill and Rosie, Sally, Kat, Shuka, Goja, Gloria, Bill, Raj, Callum, Mary, and so many more, including those no longer with us, including Harry and Simon, who believed in and supported this idea. We want to thank all our local businesses who are really tireless in supporting these efforts, particularly Jolt at the Athol Arms, who will host our dinner tonight, Burmiston and Keisha and Ollie, who hosted the regional network gathering here, and Julie for our gorgeous mugs, which you can see here. Take photographs of you holding them and post them on your social media. And these are now sort of a constant supply for new cafes. And Kathy for creating new mug earrings too. Thanks to Rashenda for her constant support and inspiration from afar. And to every one of you who has and will shape this movement going forward. Well, somebody said earlier on, many a mickle makes a muckle. It's true, the small things grow into big things. And what's so elegant and powerful about this idea is its absolute simplicity. And I think we all know that there's power in that. I'm not going to say any more because the thank yous stand for themselves, but I'm very honoured to have been part of today and proud to be associated with this amazing movement and all of you all in this room and those that can't be with us for the rest of the day. Jess, do you want to say a final word to all our friends?
It won't be a long one. It's been a very full day, so much chatter, which I hope is a great sign. And it's been a delight to welcome everybody here and online and watching the recordings. I'd just like to offer thanks as well to Fiona, our chair. Before we close, thank you all for coming.